Long time no see.
Yeah, right, Harvey.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, guys. Welcome in non-QM lending, step two of our non-QM 101 series here at MLB. We're trying to go back to basics, right? Non-QM lending is only about 10% of the market as of last year. It's going to be much going forward. And a lot of LOs just stay away from it or don't get as aggressive as they should with it because they don't know as much or enough about it. So get back to basics and really debunk any myths that are out there and help you begin to realize how to chase non-QM opportunity. So last week we kind of covered a real basic level of what NQM was and was not. And this week we're going to go into a little bit about how to identify those non-QM opportunities. My name is Paul Sushereba. I run non-QM here. I'm the division manager for non-QM at MLB. I've been around the industry for quite a while, produced for most of that time, and been running non-QM here for almost 2 years now. So I've done a lot of VA, FHA loans, but between 2015 and 2020, did a lot of non-QM loans in your shoes as a broker myself. Best years ever were north of 300 units. So I've done that high level production, self-generated production, and I know how to chase the business as well. So real quick, just a refresher, what is non-QM, why it matters, what it's not, to a little bit. So non-QM is a loan that doesn't meet Fannie Mae's qualified mortgage rule. Now, notice I said specifically the qualified mortgage rule. That means that TRID still applies. Ability to repay still applies. Where that difference gets a little bit more drastic is DSCR business purpose lending or any business purpose lending. So any investment property can have a wider gap in what it can stray away from in terms of qualifications, but the bulk of your non-QM products are built for primary, second home, self-employed borrowers. Even with the popularity of DSCR, it's certainly a huge portion of the market. The majority of the products are built to only work around that qualified mortgage rule. They still have TRID and they still have to maintain the ability to repay, just in a more creative way than using your standard tax return documentation. So it lets you close more loans and lets you help more underserved markets for those gig workers, 1099 guys, people doing Uber and DoorDash on the side in addition to their W-2 income. Those are really the targets for that primary residence borrower. It is not subprime. This is not 2005 doing a Nina, no income, no asset, 100% finance loan, right? These non-QM loans are built with boundaries and risk tolerances that give us a performance ratio that's equal to, and in some cases better than, a conventional mortgage. So we're looking for well-qualified borrowers that just need help fitting the income box, or maybe some other small piece, like a little bit less than that 7-year seasoning rule. We'll season foreclosures and credit events for 4 years versus 7. So it's applying a little bit more common sense to the equation than Fannie Mae does, but it's especially helpful for those self-employed borrowers and real estate investors looking to grow wealth through real estate. The other part of this is, like we talked about with some of you guys earlier, let's become a trusted advisor, right? We're here to help you learn how to be an advisor on the product and structure them correctly as you're learning the non-QM space. But in order to do that, you got to pull us in early. We want to be talking with you about these deals at pre-approval, not as your contract's blowing up, right? The way we stop that from blowing up is by talking early and often to make sure that deal is structured correctly to fit through the guidelines, but also structured in the simplest way we can do it to prevent any unnecessary underwriting conditions. Income documentation typed in the non-QM space. And this helps us, first of all, identify borrowers with these characteristics, right? So these are the self-employed borrowers. I had a great question this morning. Somebody brought a scenario to me. They're looking to help a realtor partner of theirs. She wants to buy a primary residence. Immediate thought was bank statements. Keep in mind, realtors' bank statements tend to get messy. In his case, there was a spouse on the bank statements, just a personal account. So we were going to lose some income because the spouse cannot be on the mortgage. In order to solve that problem, you got to think about a realtor. They're 1099 income. They're not always independent completely as a separate business, right? They get a 1099 from their brokerage in most cases. So we were able to pivot away from bank statements to a much simpler documentation type with 1099 and make that deal happen, showing more income on the 1099 than we could in the bank statement deposits. So these options are out there because every business operates different. Everything is subjective to that individual borrower's business and needs to make a transaction work. So we're looking at options that would encapsulate 12 or 24 months personal or business bank statements. Potentially, if we can't make the bank statements work, we're going to look to ignore some things that bank statements reveal to us that we don't see on a P&L loan. Now, that P&L only loan is priced a little bit higher, but it's built for that risk. However, it allows a P10 provider, so just a tax preparer, to prepare a 12-month P&L for the client, and we're going to run straight off of that income verified by the tax preparer. Alternatively, 1099 is a great documentation style for somebody that's been receiving the same 1099s for 2 years. It's going to give us a much lower expense ratio to work with, therefore showing more income. And depending on time of year, right now we're less than 90 days from when those 1099s were issued. That's your entire income stack. 1099, proof of 2 years in the same business. Your income documentation is done. As we get further into the year, that grows a little bit because now you got to support year-to-date continuance, but it can still be a lot less documentation than a 12-month or 24-month bank statement loan for a borrower that fits into that box. Asset utilization is another type. So we're talking about self-employed or multi-employment borrowers with those alternate doc types. With asset utilization, that could apply to anybody. Anybody with a 401k, a savings account, an IRA, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, anything except cash value, life insurance, or hard asset. These have to be cash, liquid asset in order to be depleted. And there's 2 different ways to use asset utilization based on the client you have. So one of the ways to look at these clients is the asset heavy borrower. This is the simplest thing to do in asset depletion. You got somebody with $4 or $5 million in the bank, even $1 million in the bank. We turn around, we divide that $1 million by 60 months after taking a haircut based on what type of account it's in. And you turn out with, in this case, $1.9 million in the bank in the example calculation. We're going to use $1,620 of that because it's all in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. End up showing 27 grand a month in qualifying income. So we've just taken somebody that has 1.9 million they don't want to touch and use that to show that they can have no issues making the payments based on $27,000 a month in qualifying income. That happens quite often, but it is not the strongest use, in my opinion, the most creative use of asset utilization to save deals. Where we get really fun and able to save deals and make things work is when we blend that with other income. And the best example to that is to look at a well-qualified conventional borrower. W-2, husband and wife, they've got some 401k assets we're not using yet, but they're already putting 20% down. You just can't get them below a DTI of, say, 57%. As long as we start at a DTI of 60% or less before applying asset utilization, I'm only going to deplete the assets over 36 months. This gives you the power to take $100,000 of 401k after the haircut, divide that by 36 months. We just found another $1,660 a month in qualifying income to get that DTI down and turn an issue into a closed loan. So navigating that little bit of extra income with asset utilization for folks that don't have millions is very much a possibility at pre-approval or to save a loan in process. You just have to know it's there and know to look for it. But it's a great way to save a deal. It's a great way to get that borrower that is trying to stretch and buy up maybe one price bracket back into an affordable loan when they're just trying to barely overstretch, but they got a little bit of excess cash sitting around. because 100 grand can go a long way. Even 50 grand can go a way to close the gap depending on your loan amount with that 36-month depletion. DSCR loans are an obvious one to be on the lookout for. Anybody looking to buy an investment property, DSCR loans today are likely the right call unless they're putting their family in there as the tenant. If they're buying a legitimate investment property, we're really should be looking at DSCR lending today. The rates are competitive with Fannie Mae, especially when the prepay is involved and the documentation stack is significantly lower. You're talking about no income docs whatsoever. Not only do we not need them in the file, we actually don't want you to put any income or any employment information on your 1003. We're not using income from the borrower on this loan for anything at all. We're looking to see that the property cash flows itself. So the formula here is the gross monthly rent produced by the property, so 100% of their rented amounts, divided by the PITIA. So the property has got to carry itself, right? In a good DSCR, we're looking for that to be 1 or better, which means what you're generating in rent equals the entire cost with taxes, insurance, and HOA dues of holding that property month to month. Now, I don't care about any management company fee. Doesn't matter. I don't care about a occupancy ratio against that number. I just care that it can cash flow itself in a perfect world. There are options if it goes to a negative cash flow or a no ratio as well. Those do get a little more restrictive and a little more expensive, but somebody that's falling into a negative ratio where their monthly payment costs more than they can generate in rent is still an eligible borrower. And you say, why would you want to knowingly lose money? Most of the time when we're using that aspect of DSCR lending, we're trying to solve a problem. The appraisal came in short on something, or we even have a borrower walking into a property on a purchase that currently will not rent for enough to cover their mortgage. But this borrower knows they're going to go into this house, they're going to do $20,000 in work, they're going to put a new kitchen in, whatever that is. And after they do this work, it'll now get a higher version of rent in the market. Now it's going to cash flow afterwards. So they're coming in knowing they just want to get a hold of the property. They know it's cash flow negative today if they rent it out. They're going to put the money in, make it worth more on the rental market. Now they got a cash flow positive loan. Those are two great uses, two great types of clients that fit into the DSCR space. DSCR has no maximum cap. I've done DSCR loans for guys with 100 plus property portfolios. Fannie Mae says no more than 10 mortgage properties, right? DSCR only cares about the reserve component, the reserves needed for the subject property. So I don't care on those 100 properties if they've got enough reserves to cover them all. I'm only qualifying the loan with enough reserves to carry that one property, even if we're doing more than one DSCR simultaneously for the same client. So DSCR is the way to build an investment property portfolio today. You can leverage it up to 85 LTV on 1 to 4 unit properties. Very powerful tool for real estate investors. Property types and pricing advantages, right? So non-QM is not just for those creative income solutions anymore. Fannie and Freddie have applied the same loan level price adjustment to second homes as they do to investment properties today. So second homes can actually be a very strong spot to use a non-QM loan, because in my non-QM products, I'm treating a second home like a primary, not an investment. So if you have somebody looking to buy a true second home, very, very appealing to be looking at non-QM pricing, even for a full doc qualified borrower. Condos, right? Condos have a narrow set with Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA. They got to be pre-approved. They got to have an approval on the sheet. Many complexes are not approved with Fannie and Freddie. If they're not, they can fall into what's called a non-warrantable condo category, and this one gives you a little bit of gray area. The correct answer, unfortunately, most of the time for non-warrantable condos is it depends. I can't give you a blanket yes or a no that will do a loan on a non-warrantable condo complex. However, we will look at all of them. It really depends on why they are non-warrantable and how strong the association is. So this will give you an avenue to chase a lot more condos. Most of Florida right now is struggling to maintain approvability. So there's a ton of non-warrantable condos on the coast in Florida and really throughout the country as these approvals from Fannie, Freddie, and FHA age out. And a lot of these HOAs forget or choose not to do the steps necessary to renew those approvals. So non-warrantables can help open up a whole different set depending on how prevalent condos are in your market. Investment properties as well. You can do more than DSCR, business purpose investment properties. In the non-QM space, you can also do income qualified. There are times that is the right answer. We just did a set of properties for an investor out in Washington State. The investor happened to be the builder. The properties are relatively expensive. They're meant to be primary residences, and they don't cash flow well in that rental market. So he could not get a DSCR ratio that was worth doing. It actually ended up being cheaper for him to do these as investment properties on a bank statement qualification. So there is opportunity on both sides of that. That's still technically a business purpose loan because it's an investment property. So prepayment penalties are still something to think about and have a conversation with the client about anytime you're in the non-QM world and investment property. For us, MLB mix and match is how we look at our core non-QM alt-doc guidelines. That mix and match program gives you a lot more flexibility than many guidelines do. It lets us blend all non-QM income types with the exception of DSCR lending. So this is the product that we should be thinking of as we look at that W-2 or 1099 employee, potentially self-employed bank statement borrower that does X throughout the week as their normal job. So let's just say they're doing concrete work. I don't know. We're making it up. And then on the other side of that, they drive DoorDash, they drive Uber. We need to mix multiple types of income together. One of the most complicated scenarios we've ever done with this mix and match product was a guy buying a 3-unit property up in New Jersey, moving into 1 unit. So we had rents from 2 of the 3 units. We used 75% of those off the 1007 to help qualify the file. The borrower was a W-2 employee with the trades union doing concrete work. That same borrower did concrete work through a bank statement business driven calculation. He did it in the evenings and weekends around his W-2 job. All of that didn't quite get him qualified for this New Jersey property. Taxes were high. Purchase price was like 1.1 million. It was an expensive property. We took the wife's income. She was a 1099 traveling nurse. We used her 1099 income on that side, and we depleted both of their retirement accounts to get their debt to income ratio down below 50%, getting them qualified and into the house. This gives you a lot of power for the right borrowers that need the flexibility of multiple income streams. Becoming much more common today than it ever has been before. But as you see those multi-income, more complex borrowers, non-QM opens up a much easier way to blend multiple streams of income or different types of income together than conventional does, with a lot more income being generated by many of those streams. One of the things to think about is that if you do qualify for a conventional full doc self-employed loan, is that enough? Do you qualify for enough to get the client the house they're looking for? Typically, a bank statement analysis is going to show you somewhere between 60 and 100% more income than you're showing on taxes. So if they're trying to bump that qualification up into a next tier price bracket, going non-QM and bank statement might be the right solution to get them where they want to go if they're pushing for that. And they don't mind a little bit of extra cost to get there over a conventional loan. Identifying key opportunities and takeaways, right? We're looking to really identify those borrowers that are self-employed. 1099, by definition, is a self-employed individual, but it's not something everybody thinks of. It's very important if you're talking to a borrower, you know if they are self-employed or 1099, because those are 2 different ways to calculate income with different levels of complexity. And, I said it to Harvey earlier today, I'm a big KISS guy, and I don't mean the band, right? I want to keep it simple. So if we can simplify the loan by going to an easier documentation type, I want to go to 1099 when I can, because I'm giving the underwriter less to condition me for. I have less things that can go wrong in the process. And by controlling my file, I'm going to make success easier, smoother, and faster. Typical 1099 Occupations are going to be truck drivers, lots of traveling nurses, lots of in-home health care, DoorDash, Uber, real estate. There's a ton of 1099 opportunity out there. And we see a lot of it presented as bank statement when it really should be 1099 to make life a little bit easier. That's one of those things. Call us. We know those industries. We know how to help navigate that. Let us help you pick that right structure component based on your borrower. You should also be looking for those borrowers that have higher levels of asset. Those are asset depletion loans. Those are non-QM loans for sure. We've closed everything from a W-2 borrower using 50 grand in a savings account to help bolster their income to a guy with $10.5 million in the bank buying a $2 million property on asset depletion alone. Everybody in the middle can be an asset depletion client if they have a need for the income from those assets. Real estate investors, you should always be thinking non-QM business purpose. It's going to make your life so much simpler. Non-warrantable condos. So anybody buying a condo, if you don't know, just because a condo is Fannie Mae approved on the sheet does not mean it's approved today. Condos are living, breathing entities, right? Those HOAs, they change all the time. You could have closed the last qualifiable loan in that community before you hit a benchmark where you have too much investor occupancy or too much single entity ownership to qualify for Fannie Mae, and you may not catch that till you're already halfway through the process. So non-warrantable can come up as an issue on even a Fannie Mae approved condo. And non-QM has a lot of opportunity to solve problems with those kind of things, insurance, litigation that Fannie Mae cares about. There's a lot more flexibility on the non-warrantable condo side. The last place is what we just talked about, making sure that those borrowers with gig income, multiple streams of income, working 3-4 different types of jobs, finding a home for those borrowers in today's economy. Those are a lot of our home buyers today, right? These are products built for us. They're built for the hustlers that are out there trying to do self-employed and 100% commission jobs. We're the ones still making it work in this down economy, right? That's what these products are for. That's your clientele. So if you're ready to win some more deals with MLB and bring more families home, would love to help you structure your deals, give the clients a remarkable experience, and help you close more deals with more creative lending options with NQM. But you got to call us. You got to bring us into the conversation to make that happen. Does anybody have any questions?
Hey, Jazz, I think this would be a good question when you ask me regarding that buyer that you're working with.
I don't remember which one.
The one we just talked about, the one with the, I think you wanted to find out about the lease income, about the timing of being
Oh,
able to use that.
yeah, it's actually not, it's actually QM. It's not non-QM, but I
Oh, I
would,
see.
yeah.
Well, if you want to give us a scenario, we can see if it's a non-QM solution for it anyway.
You know what? It wasn't necessarily like something was wrong. I was just trying to see
Okay.
if there are any criteria, specific criteria that are documents needed when we want to use rental income um to qualify for FHA.
You've hit a roadblock on me there. I don't stay current on FHA because it has no
Mm-hmm.
bearing on conventional guides, on non-QM guides.
Yeah.
But for the non-QM space, if you want to use rental income from the subject property, you do need to have a verifiable 12 months VOR or VOM. So you can't be a rent-free borrower. You have to have a 1007 for that purchase on a subject property. And then I can use 75% of the leasable amount on the 1007 to do no more than offset the payment for that new purchase. So you can't turn it into positive income. The best you can do is to wash out the cost of the new property.
Okay, thanks. And that's similar to what I found on FHA too.
It should be very similar. I know the guideline. I just hate
Mhm.
stepping in to say this is for sure FHA because I don't read those guidelines ever.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Paul. Thanks,
You're
Harvey.
welcome.
Are you welcome?
Anybody else? All right. Everybody, thank you for the time today. My contact information is both on the slide and in the chat. Celine and I are here to help you. Celine helps me. She's my right and left hand most days in the non-QM space over here. Reach out to
Mhm.
either of us with any questions you've got. We're here to help you structure those deals. I just can't stress enough. Let us help you in the front. Let us help you before it blows up so it never does have to blow up in the first place.
Hey,
Well,
Paul, real
yeah,
quick question. When you get a chance today, will you send me this the deck for this class and that first one that I missed, and I won't miss any more of these going forward.
I won't hold it against you too much.
Oh, right on.
But no, well, everybody on the class will receive this deck as well as two other handouts that we
Okay,
have for it. Some scripting and some other stuff we'll send you guys.
sweet.
But then Celine can make sure that you get the presentation from last week as well.
I
Thank you, man.
will.
Thank you,
So
Celine. Appreciate you
if
guys.
y'all need anything else, please feel free to reach out. We're here to help you, and we'll see you next week for the third step in non-QM 101.
You got it. You guys
Bye,
have a great
guys.
weekend.
You
You too,
too.
guys.
Bye,
Okay.
guys.